Samson, you need to wait. That's definitely not going to get you the treat. This is Samson, and this is Samson's roadmap to success. I'm going to give him this treat as soon as he puts his paw off of me. But I'm not telling him what to do, but I have treats here. That's why he's doing this. So sometimes I'll go like this when I'm saying that I got nothing for you. And I'm trying to get him to figure out how to do this on his own. Well, I'll talk about other things, but as soon as he does, I will give him this. So removing my paw got a treat. There's no command for that because I don't want to make it a commandable deal. And I have some treats here, so you can see he's very interested. So having treats with you is a nice little, it means you have the potential to pay off at any time. Now that's a demand, so yeah, if I give it to him right away, then that might be training him to do that. So what I might do is down, down. So if he demands attention like that, give him a different command, something different, and then reward him for doing it afterwards. I was telling the clients, the guardians here, that a lot of people train their dogs to actually misbehave because that's when we give the dog attention. And that's definitely one of the things that was going on here with Samson. He has learned to go and grab clothes and bring them in here, and then the guardian's like, those are my nice leggings, I don't want you chewing the hole in those, and then we chase him, and then we have to, actually it goes under the table, and they have to move the table, and then they were forcibly taking away from him because they don't want to have their stuff destroyed, which is natural. But what we want to do is we want to teach the dog to have a good drop. So when he has a low value item, one of the toys he's allowed to have at any point, when he has it and brings it over to us, we pull one of those treats we have out of our pocket or our treat pouch, and we just hold it in front of his mouth. We don't give him any direction. We wait for him to drop it on his own. As soon as he drops it, then I put it in his mouth and say the word drop. Remember, anytime you're going to give a treat, you want to say the command word after the treat goes into the dog's mouth, and just the command word. No caveman talk. No good drop, bad this, go that. Just say just the command word. Okay, sit is passive training. We'll talk about this here in a second. But I want to, he's a puppy really, and he was adopted about 6 weeks old, which is way too early. The guardian didn't know anything, didn't know how young he was at the time. But if you're gonna, and he was from a breeder. Little tip, if you're getting a dog from a breeder, your breeder should almost offend you by how many questions they're asking. Those breeders really care about their animals, and they don't want it to be rehomed. They want to make sure that the home they go to is a good forever home down. So basically, if you do get a dog from a breeder and their urgency, hurry up, let's complete this, find a different breeder. Their priorities are not right, and they're probably not. There's a lot of things that a good breeder can do to give your dog a stronger heart, help them separate fear from anxiety or fear from stress, better immune system, things like that a good breeder would know. Okay, but he's here, and we're not going to give up on him, so we need to fix these problems that he has. Now, I think one of the things we need to do is flip what I call the leader-follower dynamic. Sit. That's manding as well. I'll talk about that in a sec. But basically, I like a dog to identify to us like a child does to a parent, and I achieve that through our actions. Dogs kind of see us come home from work, and they're like, man, they're pretty lazy. I mean, they just kind of lay around the house. They're not really doing anything. They don't see us when we're actually working. So for dogs, they're all about what they see us do. So we need to act like a leader. One of the best ways that I found to enforce this is by incorporate that is by enforcing rules and boundaries consistently and dispassionately. Now I went over a series of escalating consequences with the guardians. First thing we do is hiss 1 time per incident. Second thing we do is abruptly stand up and turn to face the dog. Remember, when you are standing, your authority goes whatever direction your belly button is facing. So wherever the dog is, you're going to keep it in front of you until it says, I'm done challenging you. And it'll do that by stopping in place, sitting, or lying down. So it does that, I take 2 steps backwards. Left, right, only 2 steps, and no shuffling your feet. Then I wait 1 second to put a period at the end of that sentence. Then I can go back to doing what I was doing. That's the second consequence. The third consequence is to march deliberately at the dog until the dog turns sideways or greater away from you. As soon as it does it, you stop in place. Put your feet together, and then you go to a second consequence. You're pivoting until the dog's stationary. Then you take 2 steps backwards, pause 1 second, and go back to doing what you're doing. The only time that doesn't apply is if the dog is in a designated no-dog zone. So he's getting the treat dispensing ball. Great way to feed your dog, especially if you have a dog that chews stuff. Let's say that the dog is too close to or is in an area it's not supposed to, and you march towards it and turn sideways, but it's still in the area. You would ignore the turn and keep on bumping into the dog until it eclipses or gets outside of the boundary, and that's the point that you stop enforcing. And at that point you stop, the dog will probably try to go around you this way, so you step aside and beat it, step aside this, not physically beat it, but beat it to the punch. Excuse me, one of the dirty secrets of dogs is always outlasting the dog. These guardians have been giving in like a lot of people do, and I think that it has caused him to be more pushy than he normally has to be. Drop, drop. Okay, so I can't play fetch with you right now. I gotta work. I gotta do your wrap-up video. But you can hold it right there. Oh, look at that! A treat fell out of it. Okay, so let me see. A lot of us, like I said, train our dogs to misbehave because good attention from us and bad attention from us is the same thing. The dog pulls something out or jumps up on us, we react. That gets the dog some attention. And like I said, good attention is same as bad attention. So by going back to the rules, consistently enforcing the rule, the fourth consequence is putting the dog on a leash timeout. I would put it on a leash and I would step on the leash about 4 feet away from where it's attached to his collar. I wait for him to sit. I don't tell him to sit, I wait for him to sit. As soon as he sits, he'll sit as far away as the leash allows. Just wait. When he does that, if he sits here, I take the foot that's on the leash and slide it and the leash towards the dog to take the tension off of the leash. Dogs will always pull against a tense leash. A minute later, sometimes several minutes later, he will lay down. When he lays down and is nice and calm, I very subtly take my foot off of the leash. Now he is free, but he doesn't realize it. And again, I don't tell him to sit or lay down, I wait for him to do it on his own. Now, as eventually he'll get up and walk away dragging the leash. It's dangerous for a dog to drag a leash around unsupervised. So as long as he's supervised, it's okay. But if a minute or two go by and he starts being rambunctious, we step on the leash as he drives by and we reapply the consequence. Or if a couple minutes go by and he stays nice and calm, then we detach the leash. It's not quid pro quo. Well, we're going to use these series of escalating consequences to dispassionately disagree with him for doing the wrong thing. Now, the guardians have done a lot of snatching, a lot of, not abusively, but pushing and shoving, and physically correcting the dog. I don't mean striking the dog, but these things teach the dog that it can do those things to us as well. So a lot of what I talked about in the session is recreating scenarios and situations so we can help the dog practice how we want them to be. So like I said, when he has low value items, we help him practice the drop. One of the things I like the guardians do is practice walking him during non-peak hours. Now, I'm going to come back to the walk because I want to kind of go through it in a consistent basis. But so the other rule, some of the rules we went over: not being allowed to be within on the furniture, which is already a rule for him; not being allowed to be within 7 feet of any human who's eating or preparing food; not being in the kitchen, like I said, we're preparing food; having to sit at the door. Now, if I go to the door and I say sit, and he doesn't sit, sit. That's a good sit. And just say the word sit. Don't say good sit. But if I go to the door and say sit and he doesn't sit, I walk away, ask Siri for a 60-second timer. Down, up, and down. Oh, you gonna roll over? Yes, I can't. I gotta work, buddy. I can't do that for you. But I go to the door and I say sit once. If he doesn't sit within about 3 seconds, I walk away. Only say your command words once. The more you repeat it, the less you need it. So then I walk away, ask for a 60-second timer. After 6 seconds, go back there and tell him to sit, and tell him, don't ask him. If he doesn't sit this time, then I walk away for 2 minutes, then for 4 minutes, then for 8 minutes. And as soon as he sits, the door opens. So he starts to learn that sitting is a good way to open the door. We also went over, and so those are some rules. We also look for ways to delay gratification. So if he wants to play fetch, sit. Fetch. So I only throw it after he sits. I only say it once, and I'm just waiting. Now I have leverage because I control what he wants. He wants to go chase that thing. Well, the only way I'm doing that is if he drops it for me, sit, and then he gets to go play the game. So he has to do some work first before he gets the reward. Now the guardians may want to think about getting, because he likes to fetch and they don't have a yard, they may want to think about getting an iFetch, which is a small machine that allows your dog to play fetch inside. We have a hallway right here, and so we can actually put it in the kitchen or by the back door, and he can put the ball in it, and it shoots it out here, and it'll go somewhere, and he'll come in and find it, and then go drop it back in. That'd be a great way to burn some excess energy. Now, when he does steal things and brings them to us, he's basically telling us, I have too much excess energy. So the guardians were taking him for a bunch of little walks throughout the day, but an average dog needs 45 minutes of exercise a day. I'm not saying he's a super high energy dog, but he probably needs closer to an hour of exercise a day. Now, because we have a yard, I came up with some creative ways to burn energy. One of the things I like the guardians to do is do a Google search for scent games for dogs. There's all sorts of games where you're hiding treats and places and things like that. That helps the dog have some mental stimulation. Also, using a Kong is great. A lot of times what I'll do is take one of these high-value meat treats, put it in the Kong first, then fill it up with peanut butter. And now the dog smells the treat coming from the hole on the bottom of it, but it's got to lick through all the peanut butter to get to the juicy meat at the bottom. Yeah, I'll let you manage that. Okay. Another rule was we have kind of two couches and there's an L shape between the couches and the table. He should not be allowed to force his way in there. Now, if he gets invited in there, that's different. Okay, so let me see. So delaying gratification, also the guardian should need to be eating before they feed him. And that way he sees the humans as having higher or more authority. Now, like I said, exercise is key. I'd like the guardians to start an exercise journal. Write the date at the top, and then write the time, and then exercise, fetch 12 times. We were doing a laser running around here. We could actually get a little bit of a loop. And so count the number of loops or whatever it is and put that down at the time. Every time he steals some clothing, put that down at the time. Because we have an issue about potty, we also probably want to put when he poops there. And then at the end of the day, we give a grade. Now that was a C-. The next day, we maybe add an extra walk, we use an extra fetch, or we do laser a little bit longer, more repetitions, and then at the end of the day, grade that day. So this allows us to eventually get to the point where it's an A day. Well, if he's getting an A grade, then his behavior is pretty good. And then at the same time, we're also exercising him and being proactive. Remember, if he steals something or is being mischievous, he's probably saying, I need more attention. Now, just something I just saw, he likes to put his paw on us, and as soon as he does that, we're going to stop petting. Stopping petting a dog or giving affection when it does something you don't want within that 3-second window is a very effective way to help the dog understand that you didn't like that thing. Now, there's also something called a negative punishment, which negative means deducting something from the equation. So if I'm like here, let's say this door was closed, and I'm here, and he jumps up on me, if I step outside the room and close the door behind me so he can't follow me, now I removed myself from the equation. So he's jumping up on me saying, I want more attention from you, pet me. Well, I jumped up on him, and he not only did he not give me attention, he left. That's the 100% opposite of what I'm trying to accomplish. So if he does that, we consistently leave, then he'll learn to stop offering that behavior. But stopping petting him can be very effective for that as well. Okay, so let me see. We also talked about passive training and petting with a purpose. Passive training is what I was talking about earlier. We wait for the dog to do something on his own, and we pet him for doing it. We say just the command word. Don't say good boy, or when he sits, pet him and say sit. Just say just sit, come, down, whatever it is. If he brings you a special toy, say blue, say bone. Assign each toy a name. And so that's why you can create a vocabulary for him that helps, give me the ball, give me this, give me that. Also, I do directional commands where I'll go into a room and I'll toss a treat right outside the room. The dog goes and licks it up. I say the word off, or excuse me, out. I would do this for the carpet area, for the kitchen, any place where we're going to ask him to leave, help him practice that behavior before it's the real deal. And that's something I do with a lot of my clients, is show them how to recreate situations, help the dog practice the behavior we want in a classroom or learning environment, then with the easiest scenario possible. Then we gradually add in element after element after element and work our way back to the real deal, but we've taught him how we want to behave each step along the way. Now, because he gets, one of the problems he has is on walks, he will actually latch onto his guardians at times, and he's doing it as a mouthing way, but he's starting to do it a little bit harder. Now, he hasn't done it out of control, but the guardians are obviously concerned about that, and they're looking at having kids eventually, so they want to make sure that they take care of that. One of the things I did, and I forgot to go over in the session, so I'll go over it now, is anytime in the house that he puts teeth on you, you should yelp like a little girl and stop playing with him, even if it's accidental. We want to understand that under any circumstance, you put your teeth on the human, humans are weak. You just touch them with their teeth and they're crying like a baby. He doesn't want to do it. He's trying to do it to control the situation. So if you yelp, and I mean, when I yelp like, ah! And he just looked up. Even more high-pitched than that if you can. And then you freeze for a second, and then go back to playing with it. If he mows you again, then I would do the negative punishment. Immediately leave the room and close the door. Wait for him to settle down. Come. For a minute before you come back in the room. Again, that was passive training. So I use recognize or reward as a watchword for this. So if he just came to me and I didn't see it, somebody says reward, I just look at the dog and I'm like, come. If he's standing, I just assume he came. If he's sitting, I pet him and say sit. If he lay down, I pet him and say crash, or whatever the word is for down. It just means that somebody else recognized something I didn't see. Now, we also went over petting with a purpose, which would be important for him because he likes to demand attention. He paws at his humans when he wants attention. Well, if he paws at me and I pet him, that tells him he is in charge of me. And that makes him think he's responsible for me. Also, it makes him think he doesn't have to listen to me. And also, he's going to probably give me signs to communicate, hey, careful, there's a guy walking by, and I don't listen to or recognize the signs. That's going to stress him out and make him perform even more exuberantly to try to get his point across. So the more that we, if he tells me what to do, instead of doing what he wants, I'm going to give him a counter order, tell him to sit. When he sits, I'm going to pet him on his chin and say sit, and just the word sit. Or if he's already sitting, I'm asking him to come and sit over here, or ask him to lie down. And his guardian's doing a great job. He wants her to play fetch. He's kind of pushing the ball at her. She went to take it once, and he didn't release it. So what you can do now is just go ahead and hold it, and just hold it. Now if he pulls away, just let go. So you're going to hold it, but if you try to pull away, then I let go, and you're away. Then now, there you go. Now, pet him right there, he dropped it. She didn't say drop. So we want to make sure we do recognize. But that's glad. It's good because we got it in this video. Now you'll remember to do it in the future. But you're telling him the rules for my game. If you want to play fetch with me, this is what I expect. And I'm not going to tell you what to do. I'm not going to get mad. Oh, that was beautiful. He just did it perfectly. But we're telling the dog these are the only ways that only under these circumstances will I play this game. Now, for the walks, we can do things to help him. Now, like I said, we're going to start the exercise journal, and we're going to start getting him more exercise. Before we walk him, we might take the laser and run him and do some laps, or do some fetching in the house, or something that's going to cause him to drain his excess energy. We would do this before we take him for a walk. Now, and remind me to come back to the CER. So once we do this to the point where, and you put this in your exercise journal as well, you'll find a certain threshold, a certain amount of laser runs or fetches or whatever it is before it depletes his energy properly. Now he's going to be panting and heavy and out of breath. Let him hang out for a couple minutes, probably 5 to 15 minutes. When he stops breathing heavy, then what I would do is put him on the leash, and one of the things we did is we went about going U-turns. I'll actually do the CER now. The video above shows how you can do a conditioned emotional response for the collar. He also doesn't like the leash. We can do the exact same thing with the leash. And we should do that, and we should do that for both of those at least 3 times a day for the next week to 2 weeks. So that when you pull the leash or collar out, his tail's wagging in a happy way, he comes up and he sits down, or he's sticking his head through that collar on his own. Okay, now before we actually go for one, and for the feeding ball, right now he's doing what we probably prefer he doesn't do, so maybe kind of distract him there. When the feeding ball is done, we want to take the ball away. If we allow him to, he's going to keep on chewing on it because it's not paying off. There's a couple pieces of curl in here. He might not empty it completely, but if you see him chewing on it and he pulls a hole in it, it's going to kind of ruin the thing. So once the food is gone, he should put it up there and he doesn't get access to it. Since we're not doing this video, we can still supervise. As long as you're supervising him, but he was just sat down and he's been gnawing on it. We don't want him to chew holes in it because he got to buy another one. Okay, so before the walk, we're going to tire him out by whatever number of exercise. Now, use the treats. Grab a treat out of the bag. So, because the guardians have snatched things, she just walked over and he immediately went down to guard it again. So, we're going to use positive reinforcement. We're all force-free here in Dog Got Problems, 100% positive. Now, before you do that, pick up the ball and just pick it up normally, and now give it to him. So I pick up the ball first while he's distracted with a treat, and then because he behaves so well, you can maybe say ignore or whatever the command word is. But again, when you pick something up, if I snatch it, that implies that I don't think I own it. So I have to trick somebody or get by before they can stop me. If it's mine, I grab it in a very, very, very methodical fashion because I don't have to rush because I'm not worried that somebody's going to take my stuff. Okay, so for him, for the walks, what we'd like to do, I showed the guardians how to use a martingale collar and how to apply the special twist of the leash and my 5 rules for a structured walk. So using those will help. But depleting his energy before the walk will also dramatically help. Practicing U-turns in the house will really help. Also doing laps in the house. Doing walks, and what I would like the guardians to do is one walk, I'd like them to do a couple times a day, is walk from here to the corner, which is about probably 400 feet. And every 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 steps, I'm going to stop and tell him to sit. He never knows which one. And then I'm going to give him the treat once he sits, and then take another couple steps. So you might practice sitting 50 times on walking this 400 feet each direction. But now, eventually, when he was doing it in the house, he started looking up at his guardian. He's watching the guardian instead of paying attention to his environment, which will help with his reactivity on walks and also help make it easier for him to sit because he's just so practiced doing it. So what we would do is do laps in the house first, where we're stopping every 2, 3, 4, 5 steps and make him sit, give him a treat. At this point, I might pull the treats in half so we don't overload him with treats. And then once I've done about 4 or 5, well, you'll figure out what the magic number is. Probably anywhere between 4 and 10 laps in the house. We have a back door. We have a little, it's not fenced in, but we have a backyard off the street. This is kind of a busy neighborhood. So then we're going to go immediately to the backyard and do laps in the backyard. Do about 4 or 8 of those. And again, stop every 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 steps and make him sit. Once we've done that, then we walk down the driveway and then we start walking on the actual walk. Now remember, if we see something that we think he's going to be reactive to, it's our responsibility to increase the distance or to turn him away so he doesn't see it. That's why we practice the U-turn. And the U-turn, remember, you're walking, you first turn halfway, and you hold the treat out. Well, actually, he's on the left, so I turn. If I'm walking this way, I would just stop, and I turn halfway. So the sidewalk's going here. I'm now perpendicular to the sidewalk, and I'm holding one treat. The dog's going to see it, and it's going to start coming towards it. Once the dog turns towards it, then I take another step, and once the dog is completely going this way, I pop it in their mouth, and I say the word turn. Then I would take about 4 to 8 steps, and I would repeat the process and go that way. So you want to practice the turn when you don't need the turn at first. And then eventually, if you're walking down the street and you see somebody came out with a dog that you, before your dog sees and you do a turn, he's happy to turn. He's just looking for the treat. Now you moved him around. You controlled the environment. He didn't have to control it or lunge at the other dog. You did it before he had a chance to even react. Now, for about half of my clients, just simply incorporating rules, enforcing them, petting with a purpose, passive training, all this stuff in the house, takes care the dog doesn't feel like it's responsible and needs to be protective of the humans outside of the house. I'm hoping that's the case here. But he's giving me some indications that might not be the case, and we might need to do, and I haven't come to our behavior adjustment training classes that we do on the weekends, where we control the environment, we put him in a scenario where we control the other dog, the other handler, we increase the distance until he feels comfortable, and help him practice and learn a new behavior. Let me see, I went and used the MacGyver episode. He's a counter surfer. I went through some tips. I won't go through this. If you have a dog that counter surfs, hire me. I'll teach you with the MacGyver episode, if I can even say MacGyver. Let me see. I'm trying to think. Is there anything else I forgot? Okay. Well, I used my hand like this with my fingers curled. And the lower you go, the more it's for the dog. So if I go like, come, Samson. The lower I go, the more it's for the dog. When I get the dog, when I want to make him sit, I go in an arc. Let me do it over here so we can see better camera presence. I go in an arc over the head. See how he sat? I lower it, let him lick it off my hand and say the word sit, and then I tickle him under his chin. The lower you go, the more it's for the dog. See how that attracted him? Sit. Now don't fake him out like I'm doing here too many times, and he'll stop doing it. Down. You could call that a flop if you want to make that a command as well. Just pet, and again, petting with a purpose. Last little thing. Use the watchwords. Paycheck means I suspect you may have forgotten to pet with a purpose. Reward or recognize means the dog just did something and you missed it. Immediately start petting your dog. Repeat or rerun means you're repeating the command word over and over again. The more you say it, the less you need it. Okay, here, buddy. This is Samson. We come over here. I want one more sit for the road. This is Samson, and this is his roadmap to success. Remember, everything you do trains your dog. Only sometimes you mean it. Focus.